Hello, all you rascally drywallers out there. I hope you're having a fun-filled day today. I'm excited for this one. You are going to be in store for a patriotic episode of the Drywall Podcast. I am Nick Harmon, your host. With us today, Walter Baker with American Acoustics out of Reno, Nevada. Walter is a 63-year-old veteran of drywall with a special spot for texture. His knowledge of the trade runs deep in experience and in business. At one time, he surpassed 90 employees, but it wasn't always easy. We talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly drywall has to offer and how he cut his teeth with an unlikely instructor.
So I went to work for them, and they were all tool guys, of course, and there was 146 units there, and the guy hired me just to run the gun for $15 a roll. I'll never forget it, 500-foot roll. And I didn't know shit. I mean, I knew the basics, but I fought that thing and fought that thing and fought that thing. But I told myself, by the time these 140 units are done, I'm going to know how to run this damn gun.
Yeah.
And I actually took pretty much cut and pay just to learn.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll never forget, it's kind of one of them turning points in life when you hit these certain little plateaus. And I'll never forget this guy from California that was on the job. And he goes, you'll fight that thing for 3 months. He goes, then one day it'll just all click and you'll never forget it.
We talk a lot about the tools. We talk about his time in Oklahoma, knowing the boys over at Freeman Drywall Products, the tapeworm, and just a lot about automatic tools. I've known Walter through Fresco Harmony for a long time, and I'm excited for you to get to know him as well. The Drywall Podcast was brought to you today by Fresco Harmony, making walls better since 2004. It's hard to believe it's been 20 years. We sell product at CSR, and yours truly is going to be there June 6th and 7th at the Barrie and Concord locations. I look forward to seeing you guys. We're going to be there all day, having fun. It's Your Man Cam might be there, Brawley's Dad Construction, and we're going to play in the mud and have a ball. Have a hankering for learning Fresco Harmony, but don't have the time or money to go up to Canada for this next training. You can receive a free sample pack if you reach out to me at info@frescoharmony.com. We'll hook you up. You can also get a free sample pack if you are in Canada through CSR. You can reach out to me for that as well. But for now, Walter Baker on the 94th episode of the Drywall Podcast. Let's get into it. We've got Walter Baker out of Reno, Nevada. Yeah?
That's right.
And acoustics, American Acoustics.
Uh-huh.
And Walter, we're going to get into it, but I've known you for a little while. When your name pops up, it reminds me of a children's book that I have for my son. And the main character is Walter Baker, and he bakes pretzels.
That's funny. My grandkids always used to kid me about the book Walter the Farting Dog.
Okay. All right. So hello and welcome to a children's book episode of the Drywall Podcast.
There we go.
I was actually going to say is a patriotic episode of the Drywall Podcast, because Walter was kind enough to give me a couple of shirts, and you've got pink and yellow here to show just for our friends, and they're very patriotic. You got American Acoustics, you got the flag. This, which I looked up, has to do with living free.
That's right.
correct? So, liber, vive, ut morer. Yeah?
I'm not sure it's Latin.
Okay. And then and then we have the Statue of Liberty, of course. And yeah, we the people. Very cool. Very
Then,
cool.
then you,
And what's the here's Johnny? Okay, so I get the Shining reference there. What does that mean? What does that mean to you?
well, I used to have a a pretty good sized company back in the 2000s here in Reno,
Okay,
and we hit some hard times because the recession came in, whatever. And I was on a couple of jobs where I kind of got hosed a little bit. So anyway, I used to do Gypcrete floors also. I was a hacker applicator here in Reno. We just kind of packed up, and I went to Oklahoma for 3 years, 2010,
okay,
and just to do Gypcrete floors basically, and let everything kind of blow over here. And when I came back, none of my previous competitors ever thought I would, do much of much. So
sure.
the here's Johnny is kind of referring to that, and here's Johnny.
Here's Johnny. Yeah, but your name's Walter. What it could have said, here's Walter. You were
Well,
just like
the here's Johnny is kind of the thing, back to
classic.
Johnny Carson, and
Yeah, that's true.
back to
Now, wait, is your reference to Johnny Carson or is your reference to The Shining?
me basically using him as a
No,
V.
I'm saying which one, Jack or
Oh,
Johnny?
the Shining one definitely, where he sticks his head around the door.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's what I was. Yeah. You know what? I just recently watched that again with my friend Anne Marie. She had said she had never seen it all the way through. Disturbing. If you're younger and you've never seen the original Shining from 1970, Stanley Kubrick, it's a phenomenal horror film. Probably one of the best. And also, if you're younger, here's Johnny is a reference from Johnny Carson, the original late night show with Johnny Carson.
Mhm.
He was there for years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Johnny Carson. Like that's how old I am.
Yeah.
And how young are we here, Walter? How young? I'm
I'm 63.
63 years young. A veteran in the trade. Now, okay, let's get back to the shirt. Are you a veteran? Are you a war veteran in the United
No.
States? What's with the patriotism displayed on the shirt? Just out of curiosity,
Well, I'm kind of a patriotic type guy. I love my
right? Okay.
country, and
Yep.
you see a lot of disturbing things going on, and they've always been there, obviously, but they're getting
Yeah.
blatant anymore. But
Yes.
um,
It's getting louder.
yeah.
The energy on both sides. Like, I get what you're saying.
So, I've got the name American Acoustics, and I think that's kind of pretty patriotic.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
I do appreciate the Declaration of Independence. There's a couple of shows pertaining to the history of the United States. One is called The History of Us. Fantastic documentary on the History Channel, The History of Us US. And it takes you
Okay.
all the way from the landing of the Mayflower to the building of the railroads and how the United States sprawled across the country back in the day, the invention of the barbed wire, uh, and also the Declaration of Independence, that how important that was. Also, there's a show that my mom just referenced that I've seen in its entirety called John Adams, and
Okay.
it's played by Paul Giamatti, and it's a fantastic story of John Adams and the inception of the United States, which is it's a pretty fantastic story.
You know
All of
the,
that. That's
the
what I think of when I see We the People anywhere and on the back of your shirt.
what's funny is when the Puritans came to America for freedom of religion, it was all kind of cool as long as you were a Puritan.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. But it was, I think the origin of the country too. I saw something recently on, a speech by Donald Trump. I don't want to get into politics for sure, and a speech by Lincoln, and how far even departed we are today from where we came from, both parties, like how detached we are from our original founding fathers,
Yeah.
inception of what this country could be.
Yeah.
That's always the place where I come from.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But we don't want to bore our listeners. We want for this to
No.
be an exciting, entertaining show about Walter Baker and his journey in drywall. Are you first generation drywaller?
I am.
Okay, when did you get your start?
I started in Lincoln, Nebraska. I was about 15 years old.
Okay,
I had quit school because well, not for everybody, but in the 70s, people quit school a lot more than they do now. I did get my GED later on.
sure.
I had my first child when I was 18.
Oh wow.
So I had to find something besides, flipping burgers at McDonald's to make money.
Were you
And
married? Were you married then?
I was living with my first wife in Lincoln,
Okay.
Nebraska. We weren't married, but um, I kind of got into it by accident, actually. A friend of
Okay.
mine um, came walking up the street one day in Lincoln, and he says, "Hey," he goes, uh, "I'm working for this drywall company, and they're hiring." And in Lincoln, Nebraska is a college town, obviously, and they cater to the college kids, to help pay off their bills and stuff. So there's a lot of part-time people.
Okay.
So I went in there and they go, "Yeah, we'll hire you." So I'm like, "Okay, cool." So they put me on the spray crew right off the bat, and they had this humongous truck mount 750 Pete Witt back in the day,
Yeah.
full of popcorn, back in the day. And
Beautiful.
I think I was in about a week, and I told those guys, I'll never forget it. I said, guys, I will never, I'm only here for a small time till I find something else. This is bullshit work, and here I am, 46, 47 years later, still doing it. So,
Yeah, of course. we it's conceivable that many of us out there had that same conversation in the first few months
oh,
of
yeah.
working drywall.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
what am I doing? This is it. What am I doing
Yeah.
with my life? Spraying. I remember spraying off the tools out in the cold rain, Portland, Oregon, carrying
Oh, my God.
scaffold. I
Yeah.
was like, this sucks.
Oh, yeah. It's just like, how could anybody do this for a living, And these guys all
Yeah.
laughing at me, and
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
old timers. So that's how I
Yep.
got my start about 6 months in there at Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay. All right. Very cool. And interesting. So we have you to thank for some of that spray popcorn bullshit
We do.
that we all get to cover. So
We all get to
job
scrape it off
security.
now. Yeah,
Yeah,
pays good money.
shout out to the inventor of popcorn. Just
There you go. There you
keeping the
go.
ball rolling. There's a when God closes a door, he opens a window.
That's right. Or hands you a floor scraper.
Yeah. Very good. Okay, cool. So you start out at 15, you're working in the trade. You're in Nebraska at that time. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Where do we go from here?
Well, my first wife, we kind of had split up, and she went down to Tulsa, Oklahoma, where her
Okay.
parents lived. Her father was a pathologist. And so I went down there to visit one weekend, and we kind of got back together anyway. So I didn't really want to move down to Tulsa, but I didn't really have a job in Lincoln at that time. And I made the mistake of telling her, I says, "Well, back in those days, you just had the Sunday paper.
Yeah.
So I told her, I go, "Well, if I could find a job in the Sunday paper, at doing drywall, I'll move down here, and I'll be damned if there wasn't 4 ads in the Sunday
Oh,
paper for
I'm sure.
papers. So I started out in Nebraska. I was like at 350 an hour back in the late 70s.
Beautiful.
And I get down there to Tulsa, and the guy goes, he goes, well, we'll give you 475 an hour. And man, I just thought I was in hog heaven, 475 an hour, and
Because
so
you were already knowledgeable about the trade and you had some chops.
I only had like 6 months in. I was still an apprentice,
Okay.
but I worked for that company for about 8, 9 years there in Tulsa, and they were actually called American Acoustics. That's where I got the name.
They were called You stole
Yes,
their name.
they're no
Beautiful.
longer in business. They went out in the mid '80s. But
Fun fact about Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm not sure you're familiar with Broken Arrow then if you're from down there.
oh yeah,
So then I would assume that you're familiar with Freeman drywall products,
I
correct?
know those guys personally. Actually,
Yeah.
Freeman got their start. They bought out the Kelly Moore plant there in Broken Arrow,
Okay.
and Freeman's actually was the only place. It's kind of weird too because Tulsa is a lot of hand tapers, a lot of banjo guys, a lot of hand finishers, but there's also
Yeah.
quite a few tool guys.
Yep. Because
And
he sells the tools. Freeman sells the tools.
Freeman was one of the first to stock any part for any tool. I mean, you could walk in there, and you can't even do that in Reno, Nevada today. But
Sure.
in little old Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, you could walk in there and buy any part for any brand at any time.
Right.
In fact, I've got a Freeman T-shirt. I'm the only one in probably Reno, Nevada that has one because I last time I ordered some parts from them, I told them to throw me in a T-shirt.
That's
It's just a
funny.
trophy.
Well, I razz the acoustical ceilings because Dwayne Freeman's dad supposedly invented the popcorn ceilings. I don't know
Oh
if
my
you
God.
I don't know if you knew that. Or he came out with the first non-asbestos brand of popcorn ceilings.
I've heard a lot of rumors that he used to be in with Hamilton's in L.A. Here on the West Coast. Hamilton's is real big, and then
Yeah.
he bought out the Kelly Moore mud line there. They used to make Paco mud because we used to use it.
Okay.
PACO is a Kelly Moore brand.
I don't think I've ever heard of that.
And that goes way back. But yeah, I love Freeman's products of any kind.
I've used his mud and it's really good. It's
It
creamy.
is.
I liked it. It just wasn't for Fresco. I wanted the USG because it was more predominant,
Yes.
and
Uh-huh.
that specifically pertaining to color. You can get USG in Reno, show a client a color chart and be assured that you're going to get a consistent color,
Yeah.
up there as well. But
Yeah.
I used Freeman's mud when back in the day, they were very interested in Fresco Harmony for 1 second. Uh, and there almost could have been something, but Freeman, it was a little, maybe it was just a little bit outside of the comfort zone.
Yeah. They were also a spray force dealer in the Midwest for the big spray rigs, and they had all the parts.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, I'm real familiar with Freeman's.
Interesting, interesting. So back to the story, you head down to Tulsa with who is now your ex-wife, I assume. Your
Yes,
first wife. How many times have we been married here?
I'm on my third.
Okay, all right. So this is the last one, right? We're
This
done.
is it.
We're
Yeah,
done.
this is it.
She's the keeper.
They're the
And
keeper.
who is that?
Her name is Renee Baker.
Renee and Baker. And how long have you and Renee been together?
Well, we've been together since 2007.
2007. That's not bad. That's not
Yeah,
bad. Excellent.
yeah.
Good for you. And it's going good. Everything's
Oh
good.
yeah, yeah. Everything's
Good.
fine.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, Tulsa. What do you think of
Well,
Tulsa? You like it down there?
I like the Oklahoma type people. Maybe not in the
Yeah.
cities like
Yeah.
Oklahoma City or Tulsa, but in the smaller towns, they'll do anything for you.
Yeah.
Um, when we went back there in 2010, we picked up an A-frame house on 10 acres from Wells Fargo for $31,000.
Wow.
And yeah, it was just like, and I would have loved to stay there if you could make money from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Um, you could retire pretty nice there, because in Oklahoma you're either filthy rich or you're filthy broke. There's
Yeah.
just no in between.
Well,
But
it's kind of, you're close enough to the Southwest there. It's kind of that way in Albuquerque too. You have this
yeah,
real gap between,
yeah,
and everything's cheap here, including drywall finishing. Like it's hard to eke out living here doing drywall for sure.
yeah. Oklahoma. I mean, I've got a friend there that's got a pretty large company, Mike Trogdon Drywall, and all his tapers are hand tape. I don't know how the guy makes any money. They're all hourly hand taper guy. I mean, they literally smear the mud and place the tape. It's not even a banjo, but he might
He's
have he might have went up to bazookas and stuff by now, hopefully. But he's got a pretty good sized company. But
okay.
yeah, I lived there at that time for about 10 years.
Was American Acoustics using tools at that time? That
Oh
was
yeah, oh yeah,
early. They
oh
were.
yeah, yeah. They were
Okay.
Ames tools.
They were Ames. They were renting at that
Yeah,
time.
you could only rent then. There was no for sale tools at that time.
Yeah, this is like 70s. Yeah, still, or
Yes.
are you into the 80s by now?
No, it was the late 70s,
Wow.
77, 78.
Okay.
So then I got my apprenticeship there. I went to work with American Acoustics on Oral Roberts University Hospital, which was a humongous job. We're talking the hospital building is 63 stories. Then they have a cancer research building. It's like
Okay.
30 something stories, and another building that was 20 something stories, but they were all like city center in Vegas. They were like all right there together.
Yeah.
And so that's basically where I got my apprenticeship. And I had a very good teacher. He was from Honolulu, Hawaii. We called him 50. And I don't even know if he's still alive or not, but
Why'd you call him 50?
that was just his nickname, Hawaii 50.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I have to explain these references to our millennial audience. Hawaii 50. Although they redid Hawaii 50, but the original Hawaii 50 is pretty good. Book
Oh
'em,
yeah.
Book 'em,
Yeah.
Dana. Yeah.
Oh yeah, book him, yeah.
It was even like a little before my time, but I remember in the 80s, they would show reruns of Hawaii 50, and they were pretty
Mhm.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I worked on that project for quite a few years. Well, not quite a few, but 4 or 5. And we just had miles of drywall. It was
Yeah.
and I'll have to say that I was really lucky to get this kind of training, because uh, Bill Lipritz, 50, it's his name. Um, he would have us do, a 10-inch box for 2 months straight, 8 hours a day. And he would come behind you and check. And this guy would pick you for air holes. He would pick you for Christmas trees, the start of the joints. He
Yeah.
didn't want any of that.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I got my training. It was brutal,
Yeah.
but it paid off,
You got
you
good.
know. So that's kind of where that's at. I was
Did you
really
guys
lucky.
wipe? Did you guys wipe behind your box?
No, I've seen guys do that. I've actually done that myself. It is real clean, don't get me
Yeah,
wrong,
it
but
works
I don't
good.
do it. I don't do it now, no.
Requires an extra guy.
Well, but if you run it correctly, it'll do its job.
I think so. I think these especially nowadays, these tools are dialed in enough that you can run them pretty darn clean. The micro adjustments on them, the blades.
Ames used to send out, because our closest Ames to Tulsa at the time was Dallas, Texas. And Ames used to send a care package out with all their tools. They'd have, sets of blades. They'd have bazooka blades. They'd have, because, it's a week to ship it back to Dallas and get a new one. So the other part of your training was you also learn how to work on these tools. And if it
Right.
broke down on the job, you got to get it fixed within reason, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you don't see that hardly anymore either. These guys will run a bazooka and they won't even know something's wrong with it. Or you see guys running a box.
I remember start in Sierra Vista is kind of where I started the bazooka, and I was thrusted into it because my partner was running the bazooka, And he left because he was a lazy ass. And I was like, I'm just going to finish these houses myself. By that time, I was like, the only thing I don't know is a bazooka. I'm just going to learn this damn thing. And yeah, of course, I was running the crappy truck. Like they let me take the crappy, like two-wheel drive, like the little Toyota with the rack on it, with all the tools thrown in the back. I got to drive that truck and, manual transmission, just a
What's
beater.
that?
And of course I got the crappiest tools. So this bazooka, which was a good thing because I had to learn how to fix it constantly. I was always complaining, but I think that's a good thing. Now, these bazookas nowadays are just, have you ran like a carbon fiber brand new
No,
Predator? Holy shit. It's just like bzzz,
no, I've got a Columbia and a tape deck
smooth,
myself. Yeah,
smooth.
yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Speaking of bazookas, I actually owned my own bazooka in Tulsa because
Okay.
there you either have the tools yourself or nobody's going to provide them when you're doing piecework. I worked hourly for American Acoustics for about 6, 8 years, and then I went piecework. And so you got to have your own tools. And I had this old tapeworm gun, one of
Yeah,
the
but
best.
you couldn't get your own tools at that time, right? You had to rent or nothing, I thought.
Well, when they came out in '81, tapeworm was the first ones out.
Right, the tapeworm. We've
Yeah,
that's
and I got
that's come up. Was that by Mirko, I want to say? Those dudes?
they are now. Merco's actually a brand of mud down in Texas.
Right, but they do the tapeworm, I
Yeah,
think.
they do. I don't know if they did originally. They might have bought it out.
Okay.
In fact, speaking about that, the Freeman boys bought out the Blue Line. They actually own Blue
Yes.
Line.
I was going to talk about that a little bit, but we
Nope.
skipped over it. No, we skipped over it, but let's stay on the tapeworm because there's a guy that I interviewed, G4
Mhm.
up north, who sells tapeworm,
Mhm.
and nobody else really sells it. It's a pretty rare tool.
They uh they were the first to come out from day one. They had a pop off back on their bazooka, which is like a like a heavy duty fiber plastic whatever.
Okay.
Also, they still have the only box that you can. It doesn't have numbers on it, but it's got a graduating wheel, and you can set it wherever you want. There's there's no stops on it. It's just,
Cool.
and they're the only ones that have that. Which,
Yeah, you could tweak it a fraction of an inch.
yeah,
I like that.
and their boxes also have a plastic fiber bar going across the front face of it instead of a brass bar,
Okay.
and so they really work really well. I actually
Why? Why?
well, because the heavy duty plastic bar is a lot more flexible than the brass bar.
Right.
So I don't know. They're really nice to run.
That makes sense. Plus, you get maybe microscopic wear on that plastic, the heavy
Well, they
duty
get
plastic. You get a little wear to where it starts setting that mud just right. Especially if you could dial that. I assume
yeah
it's not a circle, right? It's like an oval.
yeah it graduates up
Okay.
like the numbers, on a box. You got one to
Yeah.
four. This dial is kind of offset a little bit to where when you turn it, it starts tightening it up.
Cool.
The
And
the
that's
bar.
that's a tapeworm. So
Yeah.
you tapeworm, how did you find out about tapeworm to go and buy these tools when you're doing piece? And also, two-part question, was that a scary transition going from hourly to piece rate? Was piece rate kind of a thing at that time, or was piece rate sort of developing? Was it a new concept that these owners of companies had to increase productivity?
Well, I remember piecework back in Nebraska on the hanging part. All the hangers would hang, piece
Yeah.
rate.
Okay.
Um, we had 16-foot board up there, 14-foot board. You don't see any of that on the West Coast.
No, they're too weak. They're too weak on the West Coast to handle those big boards.
Yeah, and up in Nebraska, they glued everything too. I mean, they did drive one screw or nail, but to hold the sheet till it set. But it's a taper's
Ah,
dream to walk into one of those homes. But
how did
back
the
to the
glue? How did the glue do? Real quick,
work great.
it's fine.
They still glue everywhere. In fact, I've actually
Yeah,
glued in Nevada, but I had to let the inspector know that I was gluing and had to have the empty cartridges so he could see them.
right. It's still debatable. It's a debate in the
Yeah,
drywall industry, but there is people using the butt boards using
yeah,
glues with the butt
yeah.
boards, which I think is a very good system as well. Sorry, back to the story.
But anyway, I had my own tapeworm bazooka for 2 years, and I didn't know how to run it. So, I mean, I could run it on commercial work, which is a whole different ball game than residential. The up and down board is pretty simple to tape with, besides a house. And I told myself I'm going to learn how to do this. And so I was doing apartments at that time for this company out of Stockton, California. They were in Tulsa doing some apartments for a builder that they did work for in California. So I went to work for them, and they were all tool guys, of course. And there was 146 units there, and the guy hired me just to run the gun for $15 a roll. I'll never forget it, 500-foot roll. And I didn't know shit. I mean, I knew the basics, but I fought that thing and fought that thing and fought that thing. But I told myself, by the time these 140 units are done, I'm going to know
Yeah.
how to run this damn gun.
Yeah.
And I actually took pretty much cut and pay just to learn.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll never forget, it's kind of one of them turning points in life when you hit these certain little plateaus. And I'll never forget this guy from California that was on the job. And he goes, man, you'll fight that thing for 3 months. He goes, then one day it'll just all click and you'll never forget it. And you know what? He was exactly right. One day it just clicked.
Yeah.
Because there's 10 different things going on at the same time that you have to get habitually into your system in the right order to make it work. You're jamming it up
Yeah.
constantly. I tell you, I fought that thing and fought that thing, but I
Oh,
finally
yeah.
clicked it.
Interesting. So I think I could put on 6 rolls. If it was a fairly straightforward house, that would be maybe the best I've ever done. Maybe I had help to do 6 rolls. That seems like a lot. What was your PR? What was your best?
The best I've ever done was in Bellevue, Tennessee. I'll never forget that job. It was an apartment job.
Yeah.
It was another turning point.
The tape flowed like water.
Oh no. But me and two other journeymen and one helper, which was my ex-brother-in-law at the time, we did 420 units in a little over 4 months, just us.
Okay.
And we would do um, 10 coats a day, which what that meant was one coat on 10 units. But they were all on the same side because you had 2 breezeways with 10 units, 20-unit building.
Beautiful.
So we would make sure that one breezeway was completely hung before we even went there and started taping. And there was like 73 sheets in each unit. So that's 730 sheets in a day for 3 of us. It was a little over 21 rolls of tape. But we actually got that job down to a science. I
Oh
mean,
yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
knew every move to make and when. And if you got out of your sync, you just cost yourself a day, if
Right.
something was to happen. So
That was probably fun though, as a drywall finisher, though, squeezing that efficiency. That's kind of what we live for.
yeah, that was in the mid 80s. I went down there and did that for some guys out of Tulsa, actually. But yeah, that was the best I've ever done, and as far as production, but I had help. It
Okay.
wasn't just me. Me, yeah, you're right. 5, 6. That's a good day. how a guy, oh, I could, I was in Vegas and these guys could, throw on a roll of tape in 10 minutes. Well, finally one day it was funny. This one guy goes, well, yeah, I could do that too. Just roll it down the street. It's pretty
Yeah.
crazy. Some of the stories we hear of these guys.
Yeah, especially on social media, you know. I
Oh
love I
God.
love the basher. Somebody be like, I did really good. I hung this job and it looks really good. And somebody's like, I can do that, and I can do that in an afternoon. It's easy to be mean on social media.
It's funny how things change too, because like when I came up in Nebraska starting out, they would use all the different size boards. The drywall guy would measure the house and he'd go, okay, 2 8-foots here, 1 10-foot here, 14-foot here, and you wouldn't have a whole lot of scrap. But the hangers was all nails then. There was no screws back in the 70s. And the hangers would nail off around the doors, but they would put them like maybe a quarter of an inch away from the edge. And then when they hit the dent part, they would put a diagonal on it right on the edge of the rock. So you didn't even have to spot the nails around the doors. That was just not happening. But
Okay.
nowadays, you don't see any of that kind of stuff going on. The nails are just wherever they can find to put them.
Yeah.
But it was kind of cool back to see stuff like that.
And
Once in
they're
a while,
predominantly screws, right?
now it is, but not then. It was all nail,
Not
ring
then.
shank
Yeah.
nails.
Yeah.
Yeah, and glue. But
It's kind of fun to watch those old school dudes with putting up nails with
a lot of work, man.
It's comical. It's comical, but it's fun to watch. Like those guys are so good, man, you know?
Yeah, we used to have guys, they were working for 5 cents a foot in Nebraska. I'll never forget it. And,
Yeah.
most white guys can't work together. They're divorced by lunch. So the white
Yeah.
guys they would lit each other's houses out, then they'd wall them out themselves.
Yeah.
They would just trade off, but they would all drive Corvettes at 5 cents a foot. It's just like, wow, what the hell? These guys are, pretty good. But
Yeah.
back then, 50, 55 sheets a day was the average for these guys, to put up themselves. And today
Right.
you're lucky to get 10.
Right. Back to Tulsa. You
Uh-huh.
start doing piece rate. You're running that damn tapeworm. Where do we go from here?
Well, piecework's a whole different ballgame than hourly. I had to learn
Right.
that.
Right.
You're getting paid obviously for what you're doing, so you have to
Yeah.
learn the different
Yeah.
tricks.
Maybe we stop pre-filling. Maybe we just tape out the damn house before we pre-fill and just hope for the best, right? So why the fuck am I walking around pre-filling? If I'm like, it's costing me money. That's a different mindset.
Yeah,
People always like, oh, I pre-fill everything. It's like, okay, well, there's a difference between charging enough. Of course, when you run your own business, that's a thing. But I always look to pre-fill because I mean, if it's a bad blowout, yeah, cut it out and tape it. But like, I'm not going around spending a half a day dog dicking around with quick
no,
set and pre-fill. Not when I'm making like Sierra Vista, I was making 8 cents.
yeah,
Ain't
yeah.
pre-filling with no 8 cents, dude. You don't get pre-fill this guy for 8 cents.
Well, pre-fill also, like in Nebraska, I started out, we used round nose board up there, and they still make it, but you don't see it too much. And you have to pre-fill that on the joints.
Okay.
We did that with 90-minute, and then we taped the house, but then we would also turn around and box it out, which you can do because you pre-filled. When I went down to
Okay.
Tulsa and doing commercial, I'd never seen square nose board and no pre-fill. I'm like, what the hell is this,
Right.
But you get used to it. It's just a little different thing. But yeah, there's a difference there.
You get piece rate under your belt. The next logical step is to you start thinking, well, if I'm doing this, I could probably run my own gig.
Well, not at that time.
Okay.
Um, in Oklahoma, work is kind of seasonal.
Okay.
Wintertime usually is kind of slow. Um, so anyway, the guys I was working for in the apartments there were from Stockton, and we got along really well. And so when I got done with the Tennessee thing, they invited me out to Stockton. So that's kind of how I got on the West Coast here.
There you go.
All my family is from Fresno, and they all pretty much still live there. So I was pretty familiar with Central California, but
Okay.
I had never lived there.
Okay.
So I went out there, and about 3 weeks into it, I had a wife and two small children at that time. Well, no, not at that time, close to it.
Yeah.
The guy I was working for says, "Well, we're going to make you a spray guy." Well,
Yeah.
I'd sprayed with a hopper before and stuff like that, but I had never sprayed with a machine.
Okay.
And these
Yeah.
guys are like mass production, you know.
Yeah. You're talking orange peel, right?
No, we're talking knockdown.
Knockdown.
Yeah,
Okay.
orange peel was a little bit later on, but
Okay.
so they had this big old Spray King 350, a new machine,
Like that's you tow on the back of your truck. Okay.
has the paddles and everything. So he goes, "I'll meet you out on the job and I'm going to teach you how to spray." And I'm like, "Man, okay, whatever, you know." I'd
Good
always been
luck.
interested.
Good luck, pal. I'm a drywaller and you can't teach me shit.
Oh, God. Well, I've always been kind of open to learn.
That's good.
So
That's good.
um, it was all piecework. Even when I was learning how to spray, they didn't pay me by the hour to learn. They would
Okay.
pay me by the hour to do repairs, but not whether it was drywall or repair the machine.
Okay.
But spraying was piece.
Okay.
And I had to learn that basically
Yeah.
on my own. He showed me I thought he was going to work with me for a week or something. So we showed up at the house on Saturday and he goes, "Okay, mask this off." And I already knew how to mask off pretty okay.
Yeah.
So he goes, "Go ahead and get mixed up." So I did that. And man, I froze the paddles up because it was too thick and on and on. I mean, I was fighting it. He's like, "Okay, come in and spray the garage." It was going to go in orange peel because in California, garages and closets, they don't knock them down
Okay.
just to save time.
Yeah.
So he goes, "Okay, spray this garage." So I did that. And he goes, "Looks good. I'll see you later, man." That was it for my training. And I'm like, holy shit, you know? So I fought that for about 2 months and I'll never forget. I mean, it was taking me and my ex-wife all day long just to do a little, track shack, 120 sheets in Central California. We were
Yeah.
working ass off.
It could be why she's your ex-wife.
Yeah, well, it could be. So anyway, I'll never forget the day I went in the office. You know, this is another turning point in life. And he goes, "I'm
Yeah.
going to give you two houses today." And I looked at him. I go, "Dude, you're fucking nuts." He goes, "You know what?" He goes, "Most spray guys with a helper can do 4 or 5 a day." And I'm like, "Oh, you're nuts." So I
Yeah.
went out there and he didn't give me any pointers or anything. And we just made it happen. But it was another turning point that, okay, now I can get this done, you know? So you learn these different systems
Yeah. Yeah.
and different ways of doing things to get your quality plus get your production out there. The best
Yeah.
I ever sprayed was here in Reno, Nevada. I did 7 houses in one day with one helper. But
Jesus.
2 of them were knocked down, the rest were orange peel. So it was pretty easy.
That's pretty
But
damn good.
yeah, so that was back in the, I don't know, early 2000s maybe.
What's a day like that yield at piece rate spraying?
I was getting a cent and 3/4 foot at that time. No prep coat, just spray.
Yeah.
I would have one person the day before because I worked for some pretty good sized companies here in Reno. I basically learned how to spray in California, but it didn't really pay off till I got to Reno, Nevada.
Okay.
I would have a person the day before that's just a master, and they would go out and get at least 1 or 2 masked off the prior day before.
Okay.
And I was always mixed up the night before with a full tank, so I'm ready to go the first thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Because little things like that, it cost you big. You know, that'll cost you half
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
I do the same with Fresco. If I'm on a big Fresco job, I'll prep everything the day before because I'm also very oriented, even with
Yeah.
Fresco Harmony. You can really produce with that shit too.
Oh
If you're
yeah.
if you're good and I'm making a healthy square footage price, it's just
Yeah.
mud. It's just texture. Really,
Yeah.
you're just getting a premium. Like that production thing that you're talking about is I see it with Fresco Harmony also. Like whole
Hmm.
houses with the sand, there's no reason why you couldn't blow out whole houses and get that shit going. Three guys, couple of days, and I mean
Yeah.
you're cranking and making houses look like Venetian plaster and
Oh
making
yeah.
a premium.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
we're not there yet, but that's what I see. I see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
These
It's coming down the road.
It's coming.
Definitely.
There's dudes here in Albuquerque that sprayed out a whole house with Merriman beige base coat just to cover the butts and bands in a half a day. 5,000 square foot custom home. And then the next day all sanded. So you're not doing the two coat normal system. The sand sits on top. And then and then it took them probably 9 days, I think, three guys, 5,000 square foot house.
They troweled on the last coat, spray on the
The
base coat, trowel on the last coat.
They troweled on the sand finish with the Merriman beige.
Okay.
So that sits on top of your orange peel, your light. It's almost like a mist, almost like a fog
Hmm.
with the Merriman beige just to cover your butts and bands. Put a preliminary coat on your wall, and then you go over it with the sanded finish.
Okay.
And then they were letting that dry, trowel it out as smooth as you can, let it
Hmm.
dry. They could brush it even a little bit with a sanding pole and then do your trowel sealer. So
What they use to spray it with the sand in it?
I have a video. I have a video that I'll
Okay.
cut in during this part of the interview so that our people can watch it on YouTube. But I asked the guy. It was Elite Drywall here, but they have and I could get you that
Okay.
information too. But yeah, you could do whole houses like nobody's
We
business.
we tried that once in Oklahoma. It wasn't with Fresco, but we were doing
Right.
some exterior thorough on some dormitory buildings.
Okay.
And we're drywallers, so we thought, yeah, we'll just mix this stuff up and throw it through the spray force we had out there, 350 gallon.
Yeah.
So we got it all mixed up. We got the hose dragged up there. We're like, man, we're gonna, just cut a fat hog in the ass here.
Sure.
So we hit the trigger, right? We're ready to spray up, and we watched the hose, down at the machine down below us, and it lasted all of about 3 seconds and locked up, just dry pack everywhere.
Ouch.
We had to wind up actually throwing about 200 feet of hose away
Ooh.
because it was just locked up. So we learned our lesson on standard
Yeah.
tubes, a little hard to be pumping sand
Right.
through.
But that base coat doesn't have any sand in it.
Okay, so you can use really anything.
Just mud.
So they're putting Fresco colored into, like, say, a Graco 5000 or whatever, and just
I've never done it. But I told them they could do it.
ah,
I went into one of because they were using the sand, and I was like, oh, this could get quicker. We did a job where I tried to just do sand over level 3,
mhm,
one coat and then seal. It almost worked. You could still see the butt and the band a little bit. And I was like, oh man. Well, and then I was thinking you could just go in and spray texture out a house and then go over that with the sand because that would kill all your butts and bands,
mhm,
preliminary coat. And then it was like, well, you could put the color in texture out a house the same way.
mhm.
And so these guys were running base coat on everything by hand. And I went into a room and I was talking to the lead guy and I was like, try spraying out this room. This is a Parade of Homes house. Norm
Mhm.
Schreifel's Sun Mountain Construction featured Parade of Homes house.
Oh
Like,
boy.
beautiful home. like, you know, everything to the nines. And I was like, just spray out this room and then finish it and see how it goes. I came back the next day. They sprayed out the whole house and then finished it. And
Yeah.
everyone loved it. Everybody
Well,
loved it. It looked gorgeous, like a high-end finish, you know.
yeah.
It was
Well,
beautiful.
a lot of the problem we run into is seeing the joints and the butts is these guys, you know, grinding the hell out of these houses, you know, when they tape them, which I learned
Yeah.
in the 70s and 80s, you finish to avoid sanding, you know, touch it up instead of grinding it. Because
Yeah.
a lot of times these guys are doing more damage than what they're trying to cure. I mean, it's you know,
Yeah, especially if you don't know or you have apprentices that are sanding, which can be a very important job.
oh yeah,
If you're not knowledgeable about how the finish needs to be, you're not going to be knowledgeable about how the sanding needs to be. It's real easy to throw an apprentice onto sanding and it's like they'll just tear up a room.
oh yeah. I mean,
So,
an edge can only get so flat, and beyond that, you're just grinding the paper.
right, right.
You know.
We still have some time and I've cut you off a little bit. You're over in California, you're still in Reno, but and the fresco conversations kind of, you know, that's an interesting conversation, but you are an early adapter of Fresco Harmony. You've been doing several projects for a long time because I remember when your name first popped up because it was like, oh, Walter Baker, the pretzel maker. Hey, we got Walter Baker.
Yeah,
When was your first fresco job? That was a while ago, right?
it was actually. I saw your stuff come across Facebook, I think it was, or some multimedia, and I'm like, wow, that's a hell of an idea. And I have always been into colored mud. Um, you see colored mud in topping, like in
Yeah.
Hamilton's,
Hmm.
and there's a reason for that. And guys don't really understand it, but I learned the value of colored mud on jobs such as when you get into some of these commercial jobs or residential where they have a lot of repairs, and you've got 5 or 6 guys that you're working with. Sometimes these repairs are some pretty nasty butt joints on some of these walls that they leave behind, and they want you to putty coat them out and then fix the bad butt. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Well, it's easier to put some blue in your mud just for that butt joint, or if there's,
Sure.
you know, 10 of them on the job in different areas or big patches, color them out. That way, the next guy that comes in, you go, dude, hit everything that's blue. And he goes right to it. He sees the parameters, he knows exactly where it's at. If you
Smart.
have white walls with white mud, the guy's going to waste all his time searching for shit.
Smart.
So, on jobs where there's lots of different stuff going on, colored mud is the way to go. Also,
Yeah.
when I had my company, we did one job where I had 5 or 6 guys, and each one of them had their own color, so I could see what they did for the day.
Smart.
You know, I
What
mean,
were you using to tint the patch mud?
that was just basically paint tint you buy at Sherwin-Williams or whatever.
Okay. All right.
Um,
Gravy.
but back in the 2000s, I took a little class at Calply here. I don't think they're
Okay.
called Calply anymore. They got bought out, but
FBM, we had a cow ply here.
yeah,
L&W bottom out.
that's right. Yeah, we have L&W here too, but
Yeah.
they were giving out some free classes on the stuff that you see that guy in Miami doing all the time on Facebook. You know, the walls have to be level 5, and you're putting on this little thin coat stuff with this little miniature trowel that doesn't hold a
Yeah.
teaspoon of mud. And
Those trouts are adorable.
yeah, so I kind of took that class, and I've always been interested in it. And there was a
Sure.
couple there was a couple of drywall companies that picked it up here, and they were getting like $25 a square foot to put this crap on. And
Oh, sure.
I'm looking at this, and I mean, it looked good, like for people's wine cellars and stuff, you know. And it always looked really good, but I'm like, wow, that's, 2 or 3 coats with a little miniature. I'm not even interested in that. It looks good, but, you know. So I've always been kind of interested in it, but then I seen your stuff and I'm like, oh, okay, drywall mud, and yeah, this could work, 2 coats. All I need's tape and top, and I'm ready to go.
Right.
I don't need to get this stuff to level 5 with a damn light.
No.
And yeah, so it was like a no-brainer.
Okay. Cool. Interesting. You were curious. Your interest had been piqued, but just for whatever reason, you didn't like you just didn't like the Venetian plaster stuff. You were like, you didn't want to try it.
Too much work.
Too much work. Yeah. Well,
Too
people that
much,
do it say it's a lot of work.
too much work with a little trowel. I was just, nah,
Why
you
the
know.
little fucking trowel? I still can't wrap my brain. Can't you put that shit on with a bigger trowel?
You would think.
These guys obviously aren't production.
Yeah, they. And the other thing too is their systems are like so high dollar, and
It's just like
um,
coat after coat. Oh, we're gonna do 8 coats on this. It's like,
yeah.
okay, okay.
And then I
People
came
get
across a house, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years ago, maybe out here in Reno, out in the desert. And it was an adobe house, and this guy was in the middle of American clay,
okay.
and his guy had bailed on him for whatever reason. I don't know. And he asked me, he goes, do you know how to do American clay? And I'm a taper, obviously. I could learn, but I had never even really heard of it. So I researched into it, and
Okay.
I'm like, yeah, I'm going to kind of shy away from this. But I still had interest in that type of stuff because, it really looks nice.
Did you do a little American clay?
No, I've never done it.
You haven't done it.
I've never, I had another guy that used in fact, I think I talked to you about it a few years back. He had some Venetia. It's called Venetian something. It's out of Albuquerque too. Um,
Variants, probably.
Variants. There you go. He
Yeah.
had a doctor's house, and he had a guy that had done it, and he had a couple more rooms he wanted to do, and the guy had moved off to California somewhere. That's kind of the problem with these higher end systems, which I ran into that here a year or two back, where the American clay guy had split. He's in Indiana, and this
Right.
lady's got water damage, and you don't know what they did. I
Right.
mean, you and I were like trying to match this up forever, and I think I sent you some pictures of it, and we finally got it to where she liked it. But
Yeah. So I think in that instance, you ordered a custom color, which is what we do. Sent
we
you
did, and
maybe you sent me maybe a little swatch of the sometimes in a situation people have sent me like a piece of the wall, and I can match that too to a Fresco
I,
Harmony
we
color.
we did that, but we also had Reno Paint Mart color match it with a code, and I think we sent you that plus the code, and then
There
you
you go.
deciphered it.
Yeah.
But we wound up not even using that. She wound up using just a half a bottle per box of
Oh, funny.
the darker earth tone that you have. I can't think of the name of it.
Maybe mellow umber, maybe
No, it was darker than that. It's the
Spalding
yep,
espresso.
yep, half a bottle of Spalding Espresso. That was the ticket right there.
Funny. You know what's weird about that? Some people are using like half a bottle, but like, did you like if I was somebody and I was gonna use half a bottle, I don't suggest doing that because you get color drift because a certain amount sticks to the bottom of the bottle. I would get all of it out into another container, fill up a
Mm,
container with water and mix it really good and make sure you have all the color out of that bottle. Then you could use half, but you're still
yeah, it's
gonna
kind of
get
a
color.
hit and miss.
Yeah. So that it was a little drifty on that one, but I mean, as long as you're going corner to corner, you were probably okay.
Yeah, yeah, I went corner to corner on that. There was a couple of walls that she had that were American clay where there were repairs like right in the middle of it, but she had a girl that didn't really do these systems, but she was like a painter artist type thing. So she had her come in just to kind of match in these little small areas.
Oh, okay.
Because you do one repair, you got to go corner to corner pretty much.
Kind of.
But so she pulled it off. I didn't want to mess with that because now you're
Yeah.
opening up more cans of worms, and
Yeah,
you
or
want.
just my sales point on that one is like go corner to corner, and then at least I know that I can get that color in the future if you have any more issues moving
Yeah,
forward,
yeah,
you know. But I have a job right now that's Galtiero steel that I did patching on that it turned out light. The color's lighter, so I have to, and the client's like,
yeah.
"Hey, it doesn't match." It's like, well, there were dog scratches. A dog scratched up the
Oh,
wall, like in like 8 places. I just went hourly. It took me 3 hours. I went through Gallery Pearl and Galtiero Steel. The patches are gone.
yeah,
Like you ain't gonna hire a painter to come in for $300. You know what I mean? Let
yeah,
alone a drywall guy. So now I'm like, okay, I got a charger. It's like I don't want to, but it's like I can skim out your wall and make it go away, but I got to charge you. I can't work for free. That's always a tough conversation, right?
yeah. People have in their minds what something's worth, even though they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, it's going to cost you another $200.
Yeah,
They were already, getting their panties in a bunch about $300, which is nothing for a drywall patch. But I'm like,
yeah,
it's gonna cost you another $200 for me to skim these walls. Good luck having a painter come in to just paint 2 walls for $200. It ain't
yeah.
happening. So sometimes for us drywallers, it's hard to realize our value. It's like, fuck you, dude. I can't work for free.
Well, yeah, yeah. It- This one job I'm doing right now, actually, I got to go put the sealer on it later today. Um, these people wanted a lime wash, and the
Mm-hmm.
husband's an engineer, and he had went into the toilet room, let's call it, just where the toilet is, newer
Mm-hmm.
home, track house, Lennar, and he had taken like some Portland, I think, and
Beautiful.
mixed it up. And now I have seen that. Don't get me wrong, and
Sure.
it does look good.
Yeah.
But he had taken Portland and went over his orange peel. Didn't know what he was doing. He sanded it down. Had dust everywhere. The wife was bitching, and he he couldn't get rid of when he sanded it down. The orange peel peaks kept popping through. He couldn't figure out how to
Ah,
get past all that.
oh, funny.
So she was talking about a lime wash when I went and looked at the job, and I looked at her and I go, you know what? I think I have something for you. So we went to your website. And I go, choose your
Okay.
colors here. I go, I have to get your walls flat anyway. So if you're going to lime wash it, so let's just get color in there and get it done.
Right.
And that was a selling point there. So I'm just doing their little toilet room plus the main bathroom area.
Yeah, they'll love it. Now, are you using the sand? And have you used the sand before? Because that would give them their sort of micro cement or concrete look that maybe they're going for. I don't know.
I am. I have used sand on probably the last 2 or 3 jobs I've done because
Uh,
I like the look.
it's cool, huh?
Yeah,
It's a nice like traditional plaster look.
yeah, but yeah, I have used the sand on the last couple of jobs.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
do some little ceilings for my stepdaughter up in South Lake Tahoe.
Okay.
They always got something going on, and I'll have some left over, a bucket full or something,
Yeah.
because you only need a pan full for something and you're done,
Yeah.
and now you got this
Yeah.
left over. So I'll go up there and give it to them
Yeah.
basically and do a
That's
little
with any
small ceiling.
product. That's with any product. I get people like, oh, you got to mix up a whole bucket if you want to do a small amount. It's like, yeah, but if I was buying product from Variants or whoever, American Clay, I'm gonna have to buy a $200 bag of that crap, to mix
Yeah,
up a small amount to do a patch. At least, it's $30 or $40 or what. It's not like, it's not
yeah,
crazy. And that color is going to be perfect. which is nice.
Yeah, I don't get too upset, throwing a half a bucket out or something if I have to. I mean, it's
Right.
not it's I feel worse about getting rid of the bucket itself than I do the mud.
Yeah, and I keep it. I'll scoop them out into a box and clean my buckets. I mean, I'm weird
Yeah,
like that. I keep my buckets. I'll keep the mud for long periods of time. I try to use clean water, and that colored mud will stay for a long time. If I need to make a sample, I'll mark the top of the bucket.
yeah,
Or I'll keep like a small amount, like a little Tupperware or like one of my old gallon size sealer tubs.
yeah,
Like I'll just keep like a little bit of the mud and then toss the rest.
yeah. That
Those are
works out.
nice. Those are nice for patching too. But
Yeah, yeah. Didn't you say you
very
were up
cool.
in? Didn't you say you were up in Colorado for a while? I think I was
Yeah.
reading that on your bio or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where
I
at in
was in
Colorado?
Crested Butte,
Oh my
Colorado.
God, I grew up in Boulder actually.
Oh, really? They're doing Fresco over there, man. Out west drywall supply. We call it the gold belt. Got Vale, Aspen, Grand Junction, over to Montrose. Those guys they're selling, man.
Telluride.
Yeah. Telluride's a little on the far side, but we've got the dudes in Montrose. Yeah, they take care of all that Telluride stuff. Those guys in Colorado, they do a lot of driving.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They're not shy to drive 100 an hour and a half one way for a job, which is
That's
a lot.
crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's pretty crazy. Very
Yeah.
cool. So now you run your own business, American Acoustics. How long have you been doing that? Real quick, do you have any like pointers or advice you could offer people looking to start their own business or run their own business?
It's not easy.
Yeah.
Um, Back in the 2000s, I had Baker Drywall, and I peaked out at 96 guys. I
That's a
don't miss it.
couple.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't miss it. I had two secretaries, full-time estimator, and it was a full-time babysitting job.
sure.
It turned into a full-time job of just collecting money and trying to save the bleeding, because everybody's going to make you bleed, whether it's your employees, your builders.
Ugh, yeah.
And so you need to keep that. You're never going to stop it, but you just have to keep it. I don't miss those days at all.
Okay.
Um,
If you had your druthers, what would the perfect drywall company look like? That's pretty cool because you had to build your way up to that many
yeah.
employees. So you've ran a small company where it's just you, maybe one employee, all the way up to 90 some employees. If you had your druthers, what would the perfect drywall company look like?
I made the best money when I was at Baker Drywall with about 15 guys, two
Okay.
crews of hangers, two or three crews of tapers. I could control them. I had
Yep.
low overhead.
Yep.
Um, I did all my own spraying, so I was the quality check guy at the end.
Yep.
Um, and I made good money doing that.
Yep.
I went from 20 guys to say 40 guys, and in my mind, I was thinking, oh, gee, I'm going to
Double
make twice
profit.
the money. Well,
Yeah.
what you don't realize is now you need supervisors. Now you need more trucks. Now your supervisors, they want retirement, they want health insurance. Then your secretary wants the same thing they're getting,
Yeah.
including the salary they're getting.
Yeah.
It's just like an adult daycare. So I would
Yeah.
say the sweet spot is something that you can still control yourself.
Yeah.
Uh, in drywall,
You gotta have your thumb on there because also quality control too,
yep,
because at now at 40 guys, you're losing a lot of quality.
yep. I had four full-time patch guys at one time,
Ugh,
and a
I'd
lot of
love
it
that.
was
I'd love that job.
a lot of it was extras. I mean, I got paid for it, but a lot of it was just fixing the fuck ups.
Yeah,
And guys just don't give a shit.
right.
It's
And the
just
builder's like, I thought that was included. Come on, we don't get a couple rounds of patches.
Oh yeah. There's always those builders, but then you always have your really good ones too, which are far and few between.
Yeah.
But I used to do a lot of track homes in Fernley, Nevada, out here east of Reno, because none of the drywallers in Reno wanted to go out there, and I'm like, fuck it, I'll go to Fernley.
Yeah.
And I did about 90% of Fernley back in the 2000s, which was a lot of tracks.
Okay.
And had really good builders out there. I had nothing in writing, which I wouldn't advise, but these were just good old boys. And you know what?
Yeah.
I never lost one dime
There you go.
ever.
Yeah.
And I had one builder out there, it was a good old boy. He told me, he goes, I was going to start doing some homes here in Reno. And I was complaining to him, I got to do the lien releases, got to do the contracts. And he looked at me and he goes, Walter, he goes, the day you have to sign a contract is the day you'll never have enough money in that contract to get the money out of it. And boy, was he right.
Damn.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you for a pearl of wisdom, but that is probably as good as it gets. Can you say that again for just in case anybody missed it?
Well, this builder told me when I was,
And also tell me what that means to you.
well, I used to do a lot of work with nothing in writing. And like I said, I never lost a dime. We're talking hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I was doing tracks for these regular builders and they wanted everything in writing. And I was complaining to this one builder because I was new to lien releases and this and that. And he
Yeah.
told me, he says, Walter, he goes, the day that you have to sign a contract is the day there will never be enough money in that contract to get the money out of that contract. In other words, you're going to get screwed in the end.
Right.
And he was so correct.
What did you do with that advice?
Well, I always kept it in the back of my mind, but again, these guys in Fernley were mainly local guys, even though some of them were doing 1,200 house tracks out there. They were mainly local guys, and they were just getting to the point where they could attract in the Toll Brothers, Lennars, the Pulteys,
Okay.
and sell out.
Yeah.
Most of them sold out 2 years before it crashed and took their money, which was
Okay.
smart.
Yeah.
Um, so when these guys start taking over, of course, they want everything in writing. I mean, it does have its advantages. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah,
again,
of course.
the good days were over at that point.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Is there a tool or system? You're an older person in the trade, you've been around. Is there a tool or a system that you thought would absolutely not work, or you were resistant to it for the longest time, and then for whatever reason you tried it and it changed the way that you do your work, and now you wouldn't do your job without it? What would it be?
When I was in Tulsa, um, Ames, of course, it was a couple years after you had the tapeworms out.
Yeah,
Well, then you had the premieres come out, which is actually Blue Line now.
right.
And Blue Line had wheels on her nail spotter.
Yeah,
And I was doing those apartments in Tulsa, and this one friend of mine come on the job, and he had this blue nail spotter. I like the color. I was like, whoa.
yeah.
And I thought that was the silliest shit, these damn wheels on a nail spotter.
Yeah.
So he looked at me and he goes, okay, try it. Because I'm used to the skid plate, the Ames or
Yeah.
he goes, try it. He goes, the first row of nails you do, because it was just nails then, he goes, you're going to like it. He goes, the second row you do, you're going to love it. And third row you do, you're going to go get your own. And he was right. I still have Blue Line nail spotters. That's all I use for nail spotters.
Perfect. Perfect.
But
That's
we
a good
thought
one.
that was the silliest shit in the world.
Yeah, you're like,
Wow,
hey,
wheels on a
get
nail
off my
spotter.
job. Get off my job with those
Yeah.
wheels. That's great.
Yeah.
Walter Baker, 63 years young, out of Reno, Nevada, American Acoustics. Thank you for being on the Drywall Podcast. This was cool, right?
It was. One piece of advice I'd like to give everybody, though, is I've learned over the years,
Yeah.
Do something the next guy won't. I don't have a college education, but I have lived the dream. I have put my children through college. Some of them, not all of them.
Yeah,
Drywall has paid off, but you got to have the right attitude and you got to be willing to do what the next guy is not.
I like it.
Even if you're on a job, in the union or hourly or whatever, I'm not saying you need to kiss everybody's ass, but the golden rule in life is he who has the tools rules. Well, he who has the tools rules, and the tools can
Okay.
be fine. The tools can be in your truck, your knowledge. Always be willing to learn something.
Uh,
You
in
know,
in the recovery movement, they call it a toolbox. You
oh, okay.
keep your stuff in your toolbox.
Yeah,
The good stuff that sometimes you need to get into that toolbox, pull out those useful tools from time to
yeah.
time.
A lot of
Yeah.
times, guys you go to work for through your life, a lot of times first impressions are everything. And if you show up on a job with a wooden sanding pole, pan and a knife, six, 10, 12, 8, whatever, and a couple of buckets and a brush and a sponge, even though, say, in the union, that's really all they require. And you got another guy that comes in with, smoothing knife, got an assortment of stuff, and he's got an extendable pole sander. Who are you going to hire? The guy without the tools, that's going to be his attitude while he's working for you. He's not going to put out much at all. Very rarely. No, I'm saying there are some exceptions,
Sure.
but you can always pretty much judge somebody and what they're going to do by the tools they bring on the job.
Interesting. Yeah, or there's their knowledge level too.
Yeah.
I mean, we're getting into a day and age when being picky about help is challenging because there ain't much out there.
Well, that's really where this trade is lacking is training.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that all kind of started in the 80s with piecework. Piecework is great. It protects the contractor. He knows what he's paying. It protects the guy. If he's any good, he can make good money. It's a good system.
Yeah.
But the problem we ran into is training where um, guys with 1 or 2 years experience, now all of a sudden they have a crew. And now they're teaching the next guy that 1 or 2 years of experience, and it just snowballs from there. You don't get guys anymore really with 4 and 5 years of some serious accountable training
Yeah.
that know what they're doing. They get 1 or 2 years in, they catch a glimpse of their boss's check one day, and they're like, oh, I can do that, and goes off and gets his own crew. And
Yeah.
piecework allows for that. Now you got guys that won't even do a house unless they got a grind and sander, with the vacuum cleaner, if you're lucky to
Yeah.
vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
And it's just like, are you kidding me? But
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of where that's at. We need to up the training bad in this profession.
Sure. Sure. Well, you've certainly brought a wealth of knowledge to the Drywall podcast. It's
Well, I
great to
appreciate it.
finally, we've communicated and you've been buying product for a long time. So we've known each other for a long time, but how great is it to get to sit and talk for an hour,
That's
man?
right. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's cool. I didn't realize you were so well rounded as a drywall finisher. You got a lot of good experience.
I've got every tool.
Yeah.
I'm a tool addict. Literally, I am. If I see something like, the guy you had on here a while back with that little sponge for the
Oh
corners,
yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm looking at that. I've never even used it yet. It's still sitting here at my house, but I'm like, you know what? I like that.
I
It's in
was
my
like
garage.
cleaning bullnose, like just to
Yeah,
pull it on the job to clean off the bullnose.
saves time. And then, like, I have oddity tools. Like, I have an angle head, two angle heads. I have one angle head that will do cove 135s instead of the paddle knife. They'd made an angle head for that for
Okay.
like 2 years. And
Okay.
I've never even used the thing, but I've also got a Tape Tech angle head that's made just for mesh tape when mesh tape was big back in the 2000s.
Cool. Yeah.
that won't rip the mesh tape.
Okay.
I'm a tool addict. That's my
That tool would probably work good for fibofuse. I know people struggle with fibofuse in
yes.
the angles ripping.
Mhm.
I'll bet you that tool would work great for fibofuse.
Yeah, it's got a plastic body on it, so it doesn't, and it's got the blade set just a little bit different.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I got every tool in taping you can imagine. It's just, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's new and I like it, I'm getting it.
I appreciate your time. And yeah, shoot, man. Well, I mean, we just got like sort of the tip of the iceberg of
All right.
Walter Baker. I mean, you've like got so much experience that we didn't get into a lot of it, but you did share a good fair amount.
Well, maybe we'll get back together again sometime.
Yeah, we'll have to have a part two. All right,
Hey,
buddy. You have a good rest of your day and we'll talk soon, all right?
all right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You bet, Walter. Thank you.
You bet. Bye.
A huge shout out to Mr. Baker of American Acoustics for being with us on the Drywall Podcast today. What a pleasure. What a huge amount of knowledge you have. Maybe there's some room for a part two, but I just want you to know that I appreciate you and what you bring to the trade. The Drywall Podcast can be listened to on your favorite platforms, such as, but not limited to, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and if you are wanting to watch the podcast, you can do so over at YouTube. But if you go over there, be sure to subscribe to our page. I would appreciate it, and it's awesome. Guests of the Drywall Podcast, like Walter Baker, will receive a sweet swag bucket from our friends at CSR, full of cool drywall things, such as maybe an air freshener that says CSR on it and smells really good. Maybe you will get a shirt, maybe a 3-way or a tech dry tool. There could be a Fresco Harmony sample pack nestled in there as well. Thank you so much for joining the Drywall Podcast today. I sincerely appreciate it. I'm not just saying that I do each and every episode. I hope you all have an amazing weekend. And remember, just keep drywalling.